It was a simple neighborhood, the kind where everyone knew each other by name, where windows opened early, and the smell of fresh bread mingled with the morning air. Time seemed to follow a predictable, almost mechanical rhythm, and each day repeated itself silently, almost comfortably. But there was something about that routine that seemed to subtly, almost imperceptibly, disrupt normality. In that house with walls yellowed by time lived a silent woman. Her steps were slow, almost calculated, and her deep gaze carried memories no one could imagine. She moved with a tranquility that hid an emotional intensity known only to her. Every gesture, every detail of her routine seemed to have an invisible purpose, something she kept to herself. Every morning before sunrise, she would set the old radio on the kitchen table. Carefully, she turned the knob until she found the exact frequency. The music would begin to echo through the empty hallways of the house, soft, almost timid, and yet it had the power to fill every corner with an invisible presence. It was as if the melody carried within it all the longing her heart held. Each note a fragment of memory, each chord a restrained sigh. Neighbors, watching from afar, whispered to each other, "She's strange, always alone, always with that repetitive song." Some shook their heads, others looked away, and few dared cross the street to ask a question. Curiosity was there, but courage was not. To them, she was just a woman and music, a silent enigma that seemed unwilling to be disturbed. But behind this seemingly simple habit lay something different, something no one would have noticed at first glance. Music wasn't just sound. It was an invisible code, a secret diary hidden in notes and pauses, a ritual she repeated with patience and precision. Each morning, each chord, each silence between notes carried a meaning beyond the comprehension of anyone who passed by. And there was something in her eyes, something that looked long enough. A mixture of sadness and hope, of memory and longing, of silence and a suppressed cry. It was as if she were waiting for someone who could understand, someone who could perceive the message hidden in every chord of those repetitive melodies. What seemed like a common routine was actually a silent invitation to discover something that could change the way everyone saw that woman, that house, that music, and while the world around them continued to spin, oblivious, a small detail began to catch the attention of those paying attention. Something in that daily sound was no coincidence. Something was waiting to be noticed, and when someone finally did, everything could change forever. The soft melody that filled the house wasn't just music, it was a story begging to be heard, a secret kept silent, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And in that moment, while the sun hadn't yet risen, and the neighbors still whispered about the strange woman and her old radio, her world continued to revolve around that repeated song, setting the stage for a discovery no one would ever forget. Over time, the neighbors began to notice small details that had previously gone unnoticed. That seemingly ordinary routine no longer seemed so simple. The woman wasn't just listening to the music, she was talking to it. She murmured words softly, almost imperceptibly, as if speaking to someone who wasn't there, someone invisible who understood every syllable, every sigh. Some days discreet tears would trickle from her eyes, falling silently onto her delicate hands. Other days a faint smile would appear, shy, almost hesitant, as if she'd received news from a world no one else could reach. The mix of emotions seemed contradictory, but carried an intensity that touched anyone who dared to observe, even from afar. And it was precisely this intensity that caught the attention of a curious young man in the neighborhood. He had seen it countless times, but something about the constant repetition of the song awakened in him a need to understand. Who was she really? Why that song? Why always the same passage, always at the same time? And most importantly, why that feeling that something bigger was hidden there, something no one else could perceive? The young man began to observe more closely, unnoticed. He noticed subtle patterns, the way she tilted her head, the way she closed her eyes, the precise way her lips moved as she murmured the words. Nothing seemed random. Every gesture, every sound, every silence seemed carefully calculated. The music wasn't just music. It was a code, a daily ritual that carried within it something that needed to be discovered. Over time, he began to mentally note the details. Each repetition of the same melody sounded different when he paid attention. Small variations, strategic pauses, moments when her voice was lost in the notes. It was as if the music spoke not to the common ear, but to those with attentive eyes and open hearts to perceive it. And then came the moment when the truth began to creep in. What had seemed like just a strange habit, a silent routine, began to reveal signs of something bigger happening. A pattern hidden in plain sight, waiting to be deciphered. Something that, if understood, could change not only the young man's perception of that woman, but of the entire neighborhood, of the power of a simple melody. His curiosity grew. A mixture of fascination and apprehension took over. He knew deep down that what he was about to discover would not be ordinary, would not be trivial. Every repeated note, every silent gesture, every murmured word was a clue to a secret hidden for years. And in that moment, as the old radio continued to play, the young man felt he was about to uncover something no one had ever dared to notice. What seemed like just a lonely woman and her repeated song transformed before his watchful eyes into a much larger story, a story filled with pain, longing, hope, and a mystery waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And so, as the music echoed through the corridors of the silent house, the young man prepared to take the step that would change everything. Discovering the hidden message that had gone unnoticed for all those years. It was on a rainy afternoon, when the sky seemed to be falling over the city, that the truth began to emerge. The wind beat against the neighborhood windows, the sound of rain mixed with the distant echo of cars and hurried footsteps. And inside that silent house, the music continued to play. The young man, who had been watching everything with growing unease, felt that the decisive moment had finally arrived. He had spent days, perhaps weeks, trying to comprehend what had previously seemed merely a strange routine. Each morning he paid close attention, every detail committed to memory. And finally he managed to record the entire melody, so he could analyze it without interruption. As he listened carefully, he noticed something he had never noticed before. Subtle pauses between verses, discreet breaths, small hesitations that seemed meaningful. At first it seemed random, maybe just the way she sang or hummed it. But something about the repetitive pattern caught his attention. He began marking every pause, every small variation in the music, and realized that when placed in sequence, those pauses weren't random. They formed a code, a pattern, hidden with meticulous precision. Every beat, every silence, every nuance of the melody carried a secret meaning. The young man's heart raced. He began to decipher what seemed impossible. The pauses turned into letters, the letters formed words, and the words, slowly, revealed complete sentences. Sentences that told a story no one had ever suspected. A silent but desperate plea that she broadcast to the world every day without anyone noticing. And as the message unfolded, a chill ran down her. It wasn't just nostalgia, memories, or recollections. It was something deeper, more painful. A suppressed cry from a soul that had carried the weight of silence for years. Each repeated note, previously unnoticed, now resonated like a lament, a silent cry for understanding, for attention, for connection. The young man realized that the music everyone ignored was actually the echo of a lifetime of suppressed suffering. What seemed routine was survival. What seemed habit was silent. What seemed simple melody was a coded confession, a cry no one had heard before. He sensed the urgency, but also the respect for the care with which she had hidden her secret. It wasn't a request made in impulsive desperation. It was a calculated, intimate, almost sacred message. Every repetition of the music, every seemingly insignificant detail, had been placed there so that only someone attentive, someone capable of feeling with their heart, could understand. And in that moment, with the rain beating down and the old radio playing its final notes, the young man understood. He was about to discover something that would forever change everyone's perception of that woman, of music, of history itself. A secret that carried pain, love, memory, and a mystery no one could ignore. He knew he was on the verge of something extraordinary, something capable of transforming the quiet routine of that neighborhood into a story no one would forget. With each passing second, the tension grew. Each chord seemed more urgent, each pause more charged with meaning. And in the silence that followed, a certainty settled within him. The next step would reveal something no one had ever imagined existed within a simple song. But it was precisely when everything seemed dark, when the young man felt the weight of the pain and loneliness that the music carried, that the most touching truth began to reveal itself. Every note, every pause he had recorded so carefully now began to make sense, in a way that went far beyond what he could have imagined. What seemed like a silent cry for help, filled with desperation, actually hid something even deeper, a legacy of love and memory that the woman had protected with all her delicacy and patience. He realized the message wasn't a plea for immediate help, nor an impulsive cry of despair. It wasn't about warning someone of present pain or imminent danger. It was something much more intimate and precious within the song she had hidden her. Husband's last words, written before he passed away, carefully guarded as if music were a vault capable of preserving what time could erase. Each repeated note, each silence between verses was a way of keeping alive the voice of that man who could no longer speak, but who could still touch the hearts of anyone who knew how to listen. The woman didn't want those words to be forgotten. She transformed the pain of losing the one she loved into a daily ritual, a silent routine that no one dared question. The old radio wasn't just a device. It was a portal to memories she couldn't allow to be lost. Each morning, each melody, each carefully repeated gesture carried within it a sacred meaning, a silent tribute to the memory of the one who had passed. And as the young man slowly deciphered the code, he began to grasp the full extent of it all. It wasn't just sadness or longing. It was love transformed into art, memory transformed into music, pain transformed into a message. Phrase that emerged with between the pauses. He felt a profound, almost physical impact, as if the hearts of his wife and husband were speaking directly to him through time and sound. The mystery surrounding that routine faded, but gave way to something even more impressive, a connection between past and present, between life and memory, between those who leave and those who remain. He realized that her patience and sensitivity had created something that could not be understood by everyone. Only someone attentive, someone willing to observe calmly, could perceive that every detail concealed a powerful message charged with emotion and meaning. And in that moment, the story stopped being just about a lonely woman and her repetitive song. It became about the strength to preserve what is most precious, even when no one is looking. It became about the courage to keep alive memories that time tries to erase, and about the capacity of the human heart to transform pain into something that touches other hearts. The young man, silent, finally understood. He was facing something unique, something that demanded respect and contemplation. The music that had previously seemed sad and lonely now shone with the intensity of an eternal love. And as the rain continued to fall outside, he sensed that the discovery was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of something that would forever change his own way of seeing the world, memory, and the power that lies in what is hidden in plain sight. That secret hidden between notes and pauses waited to be shared, and he knew that once revealed, no one would ever hear the music the same way again. And so a simple daily ritual performed out of love became a life lesson that connected past, present, and future, keeping alive the flame of a memory that refused to be forgotten. In that moment, everyone understood that what they were witnessing went far beyond a silent routine or a repetitive song. It wasn't just sound, it was love etched between the lines of silence and the carefully calculated pauses and the whispers no one had noticed. It was an entire story made of memories of pain, of hope, and memories that refused to fade. She had found a way to keep the presence of the departed alive, to make eternal what time tried to erase. Each morning, when the old radio began to play, it wasn't just a melody, it was an invisible embrace, a bridge between past and present. Proof that even in the deepest memory can become a beacon that illuminates the darkest days. The young man who discovered the secret felt something that transcends words. He understood that pain, when transformed into care, ritual, and remembrance, is not just suffering. It is a legacy. It is love that insists on remaining, even when the eyes of the world are turned elsewhere, even when no one else seems to notice. And in that repeated melody, which once seemed simple, was contained all the strength of a life dedicated to preserving what mattered most. Because sometimes the most intense secrets aren't hidden in screens, explicit words, or obvious demonstrations. They're hidden in silent patience and daily repetition, and attention to details few bother to notice. They're hidden in small gestures that carry invisible but profound meanings. And in that music, in that solitary routine, it all was there. Longing, love, remembrance, resistance. The impact of this discovery reverberated not only for those who deciphered it, but for all who heard the story later. Her life was no longer confined to isolation. It became an example of how even the quietest acts can transform and profoundly touch those sensitive enough to perceive them. Music, once ignored, became a symbol of hope, connection, and living memory. And that's exactly what makes the story so powerful. The reminder that everything we've experienced, everything we've felt, and everything we love can be preserved, even when no one seems to notice. That pain can be transformed into beauty, and that silence can hold more meaning than any loud, clear words. Think about a time in your life when you needed to create your own way to keep a memory or feeling alive. Have you ever had a silent gesture that said more than any words? Share in the comments. We want to know how you preserve what you love, even in the small details of everyday life. And if this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. That way you won't miss any more moving stories like this one, which proves that love and memory can brighten even the quietest and loneliest days.